In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to implement live search functionality using Django, Django REST framework, and reactjs. Alright guys, so before we actually dig into coding, let's take a look at what have I done so far. And in order to do so, let's go to the Django project in Visual Studio Code. Over here, I'm inside the settings PY of our main project folder. So in the installed apps list, I added posts. This is an application dedicated for this project, and we will do some things over here very soon. And I also added REST framework. In order to add Django REST framework, you need to run pip install Django REST framework, and this is going to be for building our API. And then we also have course headers, pip install Django course headers, and this package will help us to communicate between our backend and the front end. All right, so with this setting, course allow all origins equal to true, our backend can talk to different origins, including the one where we will have our React application. And also for this to work, you need to include the course middleware in the middleware list. So the recommended place to put this is above the common middleware. All right, so knowing this, we can actually proceed and we can go to our posts folder where we are going to create some files starting from serializers py, but we are going to place those files in the API directory. So serializers py, and we are going to create a serializer for our models py file. And I can't believe I didn't talk about the models py file. So yeah, let's move one step back and take a look at this class. So it's a very simple class with one field only, title, and it's a models char field with the max length of 220, and below we can see the string representation method, and it returns the title. So we are going to perform searching on this title field, and you can add as many fields as you want over here. All right, so knowing this, we can go back to our serializers py file, and from REST framework we are going to import serializers, and then from .models we want to grab our post model. So we now can create a class called post serializer, which inherits from serializers .model serializer. With the class meta, we will indicate that we want to create the serializer based on the post model, and we need to specify the fields that we want to serialize. So I'm going to place ID and the title. All right, so having this post serializer, we can actually create a new one called a new file called views.py, where we are going to create our view set. So again, I'm going to import from REST framework, this time view sets. And as the next step, I'm going to grab from .serializer our serializer that we created. So it's going to be called post serializer. And finally, I'm going to go to the post directory, the main post directory, so 2 dots. And from .models, I'm going to import post. Okay, as the next step, let's create the post view set, which inherits from view sets .model view set. So again, we are going to create this post view set based on the model, and here I'm going to set a query set equal to post objects all. So for now, we want to grab all the posts available, and we need to specify the serializer class as post serializer. Okay, so for now, this is it. We can now proceed and create another file called urls.py. And over here, again, I'm going to import something from REST framework. And to be more specific, I'm going to import routers. And then we need our view, actually view set. So from .views, we want to import post view set. And now we can set our posts router as routers default router. And now we need to register to this router our route where we are going to have our posts view sets under a certain path. So posts router register and posts, and then we need to specify the post view set, and finally we need to include this posts router in the URL pattern. So URL patterns is equal to, and then actually I'm going to do it like this, post router URLs. All right, as the next step, to keep things simple, I'm just going to jump into the URLs py of our main project folder, and over here I'm going to register a path called API, and here I'm just going to simply include, so I need to import include, and here I'm just going to include directly the posts API URLs. All right, so under the API, we will have our post API only, okay? And this is just for this very simple example. And actually right now what we can do is to see if this works. So I'm going to jump to API, and over here we have our posts. No post is created right now, so I'll put test post 1. And then I'm going to put in test post 2, and maybe test post 3, also hello world, and yeah, maybe since we have a crypto bloodbath today, so or for the last days, I'm going to put in crypto bloodbath, and I'm going to hit refresh, and here are our posts. All right, so as the next step, we can take a look at our React application. Alright guys, so right now I'm at Visual Studio Code for our front-end application, and all the work for simplicity purposes is going to be done inside of app.js. So what we are returning from this app component right now is a div with a class name app, where I've added some padding, and inside of this div we see an input type search with a placeholder search, and then we have an unordered list with one element as text. So what we can do right now is to try to fetch the data from our API. So in order to do this, I'm going to write first a function called fetch data, and this is going to be an async function because we are going to have a promise from our fetch function, which will actually fetch the data from the API. And to handle this promise, we are going to use the async await syntax. All right, so before we actually do this, I'm going to modify the URL. I'm going to set a variable endpoint is equal to, and then with the use of backticks, I'm going to inject the URL because we actually are interested in the posts. Okay, so for now, we want to grab all the posts. Okay, as the next step, we can have some try catch blocks. And in case of failing, we are just going to console log the error. And in case of success, we are going to set a variable response is equal to, and then await fetch. We need to pass in our endpoint and specify the method. And the method is going to be get. Okay. So over here, we still have a promise, and let's set const data is equal to, and then await response JSON, which should give us the data, which we are going to simply display with the console log data. All right, so in order for this to work, we are going to use a useEffect hook, and we are going to try to run this fetch data after the initial render. So I'm going to place inside of useEffect fetch data. I'm going to save the app.js, and I'm going to head over to the developer tools and to console. And as you can see, we have an array with our posts. Okay, so basically this is working. That's good news. And right now we can actually replace this test text with the data that we see over here. So first of all, we need to bring in some state. And for this, we are going to use another hook called useState. So I'm going to set the name maybe also to data, and then set data, and we can use the useState hook. The initial value is going to be an empty array, and with the set data we are going to update the data of this array. So with the set data below the console log, we can set the data to the data that we received over here. All right, so as the next step, we can go to this line 34 in my case, and we can conditionally display the data. So if we are having the data, then we can map through the data, and we can simply display it as a list element with a key set to, for example, element title or ID. And inside we are just going to display the title. Okay, so let's see if this works, and there it is. Okay, so right now we basically displayed our data, we fetched our data, and we are now ready to perform some searching. However, we can't do it yet because we need to go back to our Django project and override the getQuerySet method in order to do this. Right guys, so I'm back at Visual Studio Code for the Django application, and I'm going to paste something very quickly just to illustrate what we are trying to achieve. So basically, this is going to be an endpoint where we can have a title. We don't have to have a title, but if we will have a title, we are going to do some filtering. And in other case, if we don't have a title or this title is simply empty, we are going to return all the posts. So in order to do this, we can simply create or actually override the getQuery set method. So this takes in self, and we can write a QS equal to post objects all. All right, and then we can check for the title if we have this title over here or not. So self request, and then query request query params, like this. Okay, a self request query params, and then we want to get the name. So in our case, it's the title. Okay, so if title is not none, then we want to filter the query set. Okay, so QS filter, and we want to filter by the title and if it contains. Okay, so we don't want to title by the exact title. We want to filter step by step with the I contains. So title I contains the title that we get from over here, which we get from over here. All right, and in other case, we just simply return the QS, which is basically this one. Okay, so now we have this getQuerySet method overridden. We can return to our React application. All right, guys, so right now we can fix our endpoint because we know that there might be a title involved. So title is equal to, and here we will need another state. So let's set this state very quickly. I'm going to call it search text because in fact it's going to be filtered by the search text, which will be linked with the input in just a second. And then we will have set search text, okay? And initially, it's going to be set to an empty string. So right now we can place this search text over here. And then we will also need to go to the input. And here we will have the value set to search text. And on change, we will update this value. All right. So yeah, let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to save this and let's see. Nothing is happening, and this is because we also need to update our use effect. So whenever search text changes, we want to run fetch data. Let's see right now. And as you can see, everything is working. The problem is that we might have too many requests to our database. So let's see how we can improve this as well. So as mentioned before, what we want to do right now is to not send a request to the DB on every keystroke. We want to wait until a certain amount of time. For example, if we type very fast and we hesitate for a half a second or longer, then we are going to send this request. If we are typing very fast and our keystrokes happen shorter than half a second, then we are not going to send anything. And this functionality can be implemented in a very simple way using a custom hook called useDebounce. So inside of the source directory, I'm going to create a folder called hooks, and inside of this folder, I'm going to create a useDebounce.js file, and I'm just going to paste this useDebounce hook, which takes in some value and delay. It sets the value and it updates the value on this delay. And then we have a cleanup function over here, and we are returning the debounce value. So right now we can save this useDebounce hook, and we can go back to our app.js, and we can import I'll try an auto import useDebounce. There it is. And we can simply use this useDebounce inside of our app component. All right. So I'm going to set a variable debounce like this is equal to useDebounce. useDebounce. And here we are just passing the search text, and let's set the delay for half a second, okay? And now for this to work, we actually need this debounce to be placed instead of the search text or the use effect list, like this, okay? So now we are going to fetch the data not on the search text, but on the debounce, which happens to have a delay of half a second. So let's save this and let's try it one more time. As you can see, there's a delay. Okay, if I put here 5 seconds instead, you can see much better how this is working. So now I'm going to type T, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there it is. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there it is. Okay, so obviously 5 seconds is a little bit too long. Let's have a delay of half a second, and there it is. Everything is working. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we will see each other in the next one. Take care and bye-bye.